Three simple rules brought these two together. Not really, but they govern their lives. You're listening to The Bearded Theologians, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about The Bearded Theologians, you can go online at www.beardedtheologians.com. So this is the Bearded Theologians video version of the podcast. We wanted to provide extra content, and so we're kind of going to show you. We're going to just have just chit-chat discussion, and then we'll enter into the podcast section of this. We just kind of wanted to have a time where you know the process and just see some of the shenanigans that we play, and you know, enjoy a little bit more time together. You know,
I don't know. It's a really fun way to see how the sausage is made. I like that term.
Well, you know, I've been using that a lot lately because I started listening. When the Hamilton soundtrack, I kind of stumbled upon it, and they have this. There's a little bit in there that talks about they want to be in the room when it happens and see how the sausage gets made, and it's just stuck in my head, and I can't get it out of my head. I actually can't get that whole stupid soundtrack out of my head because it's such a good soundtrack, and it actually. I have to say, this is the first time that a musical has led me down a rabbit hole that this one has done. I have now done so much research on the Founding Fathers in the last 3 weeks that I really feel that I have a nice knack and have learned about the Founding Fathers that have really kind of set us up for failure in a society. And it's all because of a stupid musical. And I never would have thought a musical would have
see, children, this is why you don't watch musicals. It leads you into a rabbit hole. Death and destruction. No, I've seen it, or I haven't seen it. I saw the book the other day, and our sponsor, not sponsor for today, Target. And then I saw the soundtrack in there too, but I haven't seen anything on it. Musicals aren't my jam. I like musicals, but I don't actively seek out to watch musicals.
You know, the last musical that I bought, soundtrack-wise, was the Charlie Brown musical.
Okay. Although Michael and I went to Albuquerque a few weeks ago and watched Newsies, which is pretty awesome. I like that musical. It's fun.
Well, in college, I spent a lot of time in the pit, and so
right.
You know, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with musicals because I know what it's like to be in the pit and have to deal
right.
with musicals and all that stuff. But I also really enjoy listening to them because I'm like, oh wow, that was a tenor sax solo, or
right.
wow, that sort of thing.
There's the bass clarinet playing quarter notes.
Play them with the best of them. Dang it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
that's what led me to play bass, because it's essentially the bass clarinet in guitar form.
Yeah. Well, and I'm slowly getting better at bass. I'm not really. I can't figure out how to do any cool stuff yet, but I can play the notes, and I can actually not have to really look at them. I'm getting better.
Yeah, it's a fun instrument to play.
Yeah,
it's my jam. Guitar's for chumps. All you guitar players out there, you're chumps.
Hashtag guitars or chumps.
Hashtag play bass. So this is what you get when you log on to the full version of the podcast. Shenanigans.
Last night when we were doing the raid, I have to admit, it gets tough when you're having to explain something you've been doing for 6 months and you can do it without thinking.
It really is, and I hate it when people explain it to me. It's like I know what I'm doing.
Well, it's just like when we're in the same raid together, not putting us in the middle, it's just so unnatural.
Right. Well, and that's a pretty good analogy to life, as we, when we build relationships with people and we do things, like our marriage, we don't have to, there's certain things that you communicate at the beginning of your marriage that you don't necessarily have to communicate at the end of your marriage, because you're there, you're that team, you've built that teamwork up, and you know what you expect of each other. And when you throw kids or something like that in the mix, it's different, or other people, or it's just, it's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. It was funny last night because it was kind of like one thing after another, and it was starting. I knew we were kind of doomed from the beginning when we were having to explain it over and over again. And it was the same process. It wasn't like we were doing anything different. It was just a struggle. And I see that like parallel in life where, sometimes we get frustrated when we have to explain to people something over and over again that should just be so easy to understand. And yet it kind of asks us, are we explaining it in a way that they truly understand it, or are we just repeating ourselves because we know what we're doing?
Right. Well, that's something to think about as we approach the church and ministry and people. We've been doing it a long time, and sometimes we forget how to communicate to people who don't. Methodist Church is really bad about what's the word I'm looking for? Abbreviations and anagrams and assuming. We use terms that insiders know, but outsiders don't, and they makes people feel really uncomfortable, or we assume they know something and they don't, so they're lost.
Well, and that was something when I first started. Well, that was something when I first started being a part of the church that I really struggled with, is that people assumed I understood what all this was, and I didn't. Like, I didn't know what an SPRC was. I didn't know what annual conference was. And I know it's hard. Like, we want to be in that situation where we want people to be insiders too, and but those new people, we need to continue teaching that language and showing them, like, this is who we are. This is what these stand for. It's the same thing in life and in marriage. And I think that would be good, something that we can think about today when we talk about staying in love with God, how we articulate that. But not only articulate that in a way that we understand, articulate that in a way that people around us can understand that this is our practice of how we stay in love with God. Because I think we've kind of like tried to relegate that in a way where it's like, it's got to be these steps. You've got to do it this way. And I'll take Lectio Divina, for example. I can't believe how many ways I've heard how to do Lectio. And people try to say that it's only done this way. And it's like, there's a base, but it's not necessarily done exactly that way. And, it's just something I kind of think about as we move into that, as we shift into that conversation for today.
Right. No, and we see that, with in the vein of staying in love with God, we see that relationship with Peter and Jesus. Jesus is constantly having to go over things with Peter, at least in the Gospel of Matthew. He's constantly having to go over and over and over again, Peter, this, and this. We get to the point where after the resurrection, Peter comes in, Jesus, or not after the resurrection, but before, and Jesus, do you love me? And he asks him 3 times, and Peter's like, why are you asking? Of course I do. No, do you love me? And Jesus understood that we had to go back to that. Maybe we had to reteach this in a different way, and that we maybe get used to something, one thing, but weren't really living into it anymore, or needed to be reintroduced to it. Yeah,
and maybe we've now entered into that time for us to kind of shift our focus and actually get this podcast done.
I think so.
So like, just to kind of check in with ourselves before we begin, today we'll talk about staying in love with God, and to finish up the Job book and the Wesleyan 3 simple rules for this time. And then a few things to kind of remember: point people to the Teespring, because that thing's almost up.
Yeah, it is. I got to order my shirt today.
And I will say, hopefully, if we can get to 10 T-shirts, it will be printed better, because if they print just 3, it's a digital print, And
Oh,
it's
really?
not that bad. Like I'm wearing, this is my digital print shirt today. And it's not all that bad. It's just
Yeah.
not as great a quality as a screen print.
Right.
And so, if we can maybe get to 10, that'd be great. And then we also, it's good old time to start buying coffee mugs for back to school things.
That's right. Teachers, they just make great teacher gifts.
I actually am going to give one as a teacher gift for our back to school thing.
That's great. I was joking,
I'm going
but
to
it's
say
a thing now.
I'm going to say this is from the Bearded Theologians would like to give this to an award as an award, and I'll throw some school supplies in it, and it will be great.
Well, does Teespring tell us who ordered shirts?
No, it will. It will at the end, and then I can also send them a little thank you note saying, "Hey, thank you for some."
I was gonna say, what does it look like if we sell 10 shirts? We put those 2 names in a hat and draw for a coffee mug or something. Send them a mug as well.
I don't know if we can do that. I've never tried something like that. It might be something we could explore to. Or what if, because we're almost to 300.
I like that.
Why don't we make the push to get to 300? Although if we're at 300 now, let's make the push for 350. We're at 296 right now.
Okay.
And so,
296. Yeah, let's push for 350. Let's celebrate 300 when we hit 300, but let's do a push to 350 with a prize for a gift or something.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you noticed, and this is something that you can help me with, especially on days that I'm just not thinking. But I'd like to be able to post a motivational quote on Monday, and we'll just do #motivational Mondays, just to kind of an awe-inspiring something, either maybe from our sermons or something we're reading. I will say, and if you get a chance, pick up that book. Pick up Jerry Hership's book. It is a great read. I actually read through it this weekend at the retreat, and we got to get that guy on. And I know we can. I know Jerry would probably be more than up to being on with us.
Right.
And so it'd be great if we could, pull all that together.
Okay. So I got those. Check us out. Push to 350 Teespring coffee mugs. Okay. Yeah, I think that's. So we don't have anything else crazy going on.
No. So it will be. You'll do the introduction. We'll talk. We'll start staying in love with God, and then I think we have a postlude, we do a kind of reflection on why we enjoy the 3 simple rules. And then
oh yeah, of course.
And then you can bring us to a close. How's that sound?
That works for me.
Okay, before we end, I gotta go get a water, but I'll be right back.
All right. So this is the fun part on the podcast where we don't have anything. It's just dead air, and Matt goes and gets water. So yeah, enjoy. Take a bathroom break. Get a cup of coffee. Use your Bearded Theologians mug. Mine's right here. It's awesome. You can pick them up. And I'm going to be really awkward and give you a bunch of shameless plugs until in my notebook. Not really exciting, the way that sausage gets made, but it's certainly fun.
One big freaking cockroach.
Did you step on it?
No, I let it live. What kind of barbarian do you think I am?
I'd have stepped on it. So we had a fun moment with the viewers here. We talked about you while you were gone. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So when you go back and watch this.
And my inability to not yell at people playing Destiny.
That's right. Making small children cry.
Only on Tuesdays.
Oh, only on Tuesdays.
All right, so you ready? Let's pause for station identification, and then you're ready to go.
You'll hear from our sponsor, not sponsor today, Tarjay.
All right, so let's pause and remember our sponsor, not sponsor, Tarjay, and let's pause and go.
Thank you for joining us. Apparently, I don't know how to start a Beardcast.
Right,
you're listening to the Bearded Theologians. I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
And today we're going to finish up our 3 simple rules topic. We've gone through doing no harm, doing good, and today we're going to talk about staying in love with God. And it's 3 simple rules. They're just that. It's what we've been talking about, and they seem as simple as can be. And John Wesley and Reuben Job wrapped it up with stay in love with God. I don't know if it seems like the simplest of the rules, but it's probably one of the hardest, because it seems to be that we have to take it step by step, or that there's a certain list of rules or guidelines that of how we stay in love with God. If we don't do it exactly like that, then we're not doing it right. And so something we want to talk about today and kind of kick around is how do you stay in love with God? What are the things that you do closer?
What was that? You kind of lagged out just a little bit. What was?
I wondered. I thought you were being really contemplative there. I was asking, what are some of the things that you do to stay in love with God?
For me, several of the ways I stay in love with God is, obvious is worship and communion. And I value those really highly. I look forward to communion Sundays. I really wish we did it every Sunday, but I know that there's conversation for and against that. But I value communion. There is something about it for me that has always been a part of who I am. And even when I was discerning, the communion was a huge part of who I am. Searching the scriptures. I enjoy looking through the scriptures and kind of just finding things, or when someone references something, I like to look at it and not only just look at it from the particular Bible that I like to look at, but obviously behind me I've got several different ones that are kind of a great tool to help me grow closer to God and maybe reshape things and think things differently. Bible study. We're getting ready to do a big Bible study here in the fall called Covenant, and I'm excited about doing the Covenant Bible study with about 5 to 6 people, and really kind of growing close to God in that, with that community, but then also in that that fullness of life. And then the other part of staying in love with God is also taking Sabbath. When we fully Sabbath, we can maybe reconnect, or even just take a deep breath and let it go, and really pray and have that full sense of and what God is saying to us, and be open to that. I think far too often when we think staying in love with God, we think it's an action, and I think sometimes it can be an inaction, and just being attentive and listening to what God is saying to us. And so, Zach, as you think about what does staying in love with God mean to you?
I'm really similar as far as with communion and worship. Communion is where I really discern my call into ordination, being the way that I've done the process in the Methodist Church, and kind of being a little bit older than some going through seminary. I had the option to do either seminary or course of study, and do a couple of different routes through the process. And I knew with my experience through communion and how I feel and believe about that. That my call is to ordination, and not to be a deacon or just or a local pastor or anything like that. My call is to be an elder, and I love those other pieces. I love deacons. I love local pastors, and it really helped me not only live into my call in my love of God, but understand the call of other people, why people are called to these other areas, and I think it's awesome. And so for me, that was the big thing, or one of the big things, and still is one of the big things. Love communion. Love taking it to various places and just presenting it to people, and that's kind of the other thing that I go with. I'm not a big reader. I don't enjoy it. And so digging into books and devotionals and things like that are really hard for me. They're very helpful. I like them and engaging in that way. So the way that I've engaged the most and that keeps me in love with God is by engaging with people, hearing their stories, being able to relate to them and relate to mine, and see how God's working in their life and how they're staying in love with God. And so, and then, like you said, through Sabbath, we've done a podcast in the past on Sabbath and the importance there, and that's huge. If we can't rest, we're certainly not going to love ourselves, and if we don't love ourselves, it's going to be really hard to stay in love with God. And so that time to rest and reflect and pray and just recenter ourselves towards God is huge. And so those are a few of the things that I do. And this podcast here is part of that. Part of those things that I do to stay in love with God. Enjoy being here with Franks and with all of you that are listening. Like I said, that's just one of the things that I do that kind of centers me back and brings that love of God to the surface for me.
Well, and I think that's as we've been talking about this and thinking about this. In the book, Job says, the rules are simple, but the way is not easy. Only those with great courage will attempt it, and only those with great faith will be able to walk this exciting and demanding way. And as I think about that, and as I think about staying in love with God, it is a challenge, and it's not something that we can do lightly or something we should take lightly. And just, we can't use those 3 rules as a check box and say that, oh, today I did good, today I did no harm, today I stay in love with God. It's something that we continually work and shape to be transformed. Something that is we just use as a check box kind of thing. And I think that that's the tension that sometimes people want to be able to do, is use these 3 simple rules as more like a checkbox kind of thing than an actual, actual attempt at growth. Because sometimes you're going to recognize that, no, I did not do good today. And here's where I didn't do good, but here's where I'm going to do better. And that's a sense of spiritual growth. I think far too often when people get angry or frustrated about being in church, it has everything to do with their inability to recognize where they're not engaging in the life of the church or even in the life of their faith, and that to realize that even in that there's going to be step backs, and we're going to need to reevaluate and say, okay, so what am I not hearing? How am I not listening to God speak to me in my life and be more attentive? And that staying in love with God focuses us that I think it's kind of the glue that holds the other 2 together, that it will be hard to do good and to do harm if we're not really focusing on our relationship with God.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not a checkbox. The Bible's not a checkbox. It's not a list of things that if we don't do these every day, we're not a good Christian, we're not a good person. And too oftentimes I don't think you and I teach it, but I think other people might, or Christians or old Christians, however, have that impression that if I don't do this to the T, if I don't check these boxes off, if I don't get up at 5 a.m. and read and pray and hit my knees, I wasn't a good Christian today. And that's not it. That's not how God is with us. That's not how Jesus was with the disciples. Peter was that dude in the book of Matthew. I love the way Peter's portrayed, because it's like, I don't think Matthew and Peter really liked each other very much. every time you turn around, Matthew's writing about him going, Peter didn't understand. You know, Jesus tells a story, Peter's like, I don't get it. But we see this come kind of to a head in, you know, Jesus is asking Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, of course I do. What are you talking about? And he asked him 3 times. And Peter's like, yeah. In the book, in 3 Simple Rules, he kind of fleshes that out a little bit. And it says the fact that Jesus asked Peter 3 times if he loved him is a very revealing exchange. Peter denied Jesus 3 times in Matthew 26, verse 75. But here he declares his love for him 3 times. Peter was drawn towards a new beginning and a new future, and the possibilities are to be embraced. And those possibilities are to be reflected in the mission given to Peter. And that's the same for us. You know, we take and we look at the times that we didn't do good, that we did harm, and that we didn't stay in love with God, and we dwell on those. I wasn't good today. And yet, Jesus is asking, do you love me? And we're like, yes, we do. Then leave that behind and move forward. Look at the possibilities that are in front of you to do good, to do no harm, and to stay in love with God.
And I think that that's the challenge, is that it's a constant struggle, it's a constant battle, it's a constant wrestling with how we live our lives. And that's why having these rules as kind of a foundation of who we are as a person that follows Jesus, I think is key. It has really, I have to be honest, since I've read this book when it first came out so many years ago, that it has really shaped my thinking on how I handle people. And the real question I have is, you know, when I do reflect on my day at the end of the day, is that how did I live into those rules today? You know, how can people say that, you know, he did good, he did no harm, and that, man, he's really trying to stay in love with God. And having done that, and now after, you know, so many years of actually living out this practice, it's been amazing to see how my faith has been shaped and transformed over the years with these 3 simple but not simple rules in mind. And I think that that's the overall arching challenge, is how can we live into these rules where they are a part of everything that we do, from when we get up in the morning until we go to bed at night. And so that's if I were to issue a challenge this month, is how are you going to incorporate these into your life, where your life shows that you're living by these 3 simple rules?
You know, and I agree with that. As simple as they are, we've talked about the simplicity of them the last 3 weeks, but they're hard. And you know, you said something that struck me. You know, I struggle with these things, and I feel like if we're not struggling with them, we're probably not living into them. So I want to echo that challenge. And you know, as you go throughout the week, how are you struggling with these? Where are you struggling, and where are you winning? And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the 3 simple rules, and particularly, how are you staying in love with God this week? What are the things that are bringing that love to the surface and leaving those past things behind and moving forward into new possibilities? We want to thank you for checking us out. We want to do a few things, bring some things to your attention before we close today. We have, you can check out our Facebook page. We're going to have Motivational Mondays. You'll see some things there, be able to have some more conversation, some quotes and things like that. We'd love for you to check us out on the Facebook, the Twitters, and the Instagrams. Wherever you're at on the web, we're there too. We'd love for you to check us out there. We also, on Facebook, we're about to hit 300 fans. We want to thank all 296 of you for checking us out there and following us and liking the podcast and things. We want to make a push to 350. If we can get to 350 here pretty quick, you know, we'll give away some more mugs or shirts or something, and show our appreciation to all you guys out there who are listening and following and doing some really cool things with us. On the line of shirts, don't forget to check out our Teespring shirt. If we can get 10 of those printed, that would be super awesome. They're really cool shirts. Check them out. They're pretty awesome. And then it's back to school time. A lot of you guys have kids going back to school. Check out our mugs on our website. They make great back to school teacher gifts. Put some pins and things like that, and show your kids teachers some love as they get into the new school year. Other than that, we want to invite you to continue to share the podcast. Share it on Facebook, on all the Instagram and Twitters. And don't forget that you can download just the audio podcast on iTunes and Google+. We'd love for you to share those on Facebook as well, and get this out to as many people as possible so we can begin to have more conversations and just have fun with you guys. And again, for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
And thanks for checking us out.